I'm delighted to rise to speak on this committee report, even though the legislation has already passed through the House with debate on a number of the provisions, and we understand there is broad support around the major aspects, but the continuing concern that we have is to ensure that there is a recognition that small business have particular needs that are different from those who have significant market share and the power of the big purse to knock out the small players. They'll say they're doing it in competition, but a few years down the track there is no competition and you have de facto monopolies in communities. Thank you. The debate was guillotined, so there were many who wanted to contribute who lost the opportunity because this government loves to gag debate and limit the opportunity for members from their respective regions to speak. So
Member for Logan.
People may ask, why is it that in this day and age there are laws around regulating trading hours? They may say in this day and age, is that really in the interest of the customer and of business? And we believe that there is a public need, there is a public case for regulation, for good regulation that ensures that there is the opportunity for people to flourish, to run their businesses, to compete, but to have a fair go. And there is a recognition that small to medium-sized businesses don't have that firepower of the purse that the big guys do, but they are deeply embedded in their communities. Therefore, there is an overwhelming public need to recognise that and to acknowledge that the dollars that are spent through their businesses, the profits that come from every part of their turnover that goes back into the community, is of benefit to that community. We see it, as has been acknowledged by members, in your sporting organisations, your community organisations. But more than that, it's about services. And when you get outside of the big smoke, you get outside of the city areas and the more intensely developed areas, you start to find that to run a business has an extra challenge. The challenges of distance, the challenges of a supply chain. Everyone's got supply chain issues these days in industry, but even more so when you get outside of the areas that have a shorter supply chain, shorter times to deliver to the market. And those challenges of those additional costs, not only for those who are supplying the services, but for those who are seeking to acquire the benefit of those services, has to be acknowledged. Therefore, there has to be acknowledgement there is a public need. And that's why there continues to be a case for regulating trading hours. Now, with the independent arbitrator, we acknowledge that this is a process that gives people the opportunity with the law to go in armed and to put their case. But once again, the big guys often have the benefit of the financial means and advice with big lawyers to be able to make their case, not always, I would say, with an equal footing to those who are in small business, who don't have the benefit of being able to employ copious people in those roles. So I am concerned that the 12-month extension of certain provisions isn't being made longer, and that was our recommendation, that there should be a 5-year extension rather than 12-month. And I appreciate the government is saying, well, COVID has had an impact, but things have settled down. Well, the word on the street is they haven't. In fact, the very opposite. What we're seeing now are more businesses that have managed to hold on through some strenuous and disruptive times, who have now run out of cash, ran out of staff, and are really on the brink and teetering into insolvency. And that's across a number of industries. So while there is a positive story in some industries and some businesses, unfortunately that's not the case elsewhere, and I fear that we're going to see greater numbers of insolvencies in the near future. Therefore, government should do all that it can to ensure they have good regulation that supports rather than hinders, that helps rather than hurts, that recognises that small to medium-sized businesses in particular have a case for government listening and enabling rather than overburdening them with processes they have to jump through every few years because they haven't got the same level of resources. I do want to acknowledge that provisions were made for particular industries. I know in the car industry people say, why shouldn't they be open on Sunday? They put a very good case that there wasn't going to be extra turnover. It was the same amount of commission but with extra cost, and that's why those provisions haven't been accepted at this stage. But we want to see a level playing field that's fair to the small guys.